We may err, for we build a world with broken straws, but we will never betray your faith so long as you are one of us. The sun never sets on Scientology.
Scientology is a religion I feel needs no introduction. Through its various misadventures in media handling, it's become equally dismissed, parodied, and feared the world over. Much of the mystery surrounding Scientology is less focused on what they're doing and more with how they're still doing it. For those of us on the outside, it may seem astounding anyone's a Scientologist. I mean, it's so obviously wrong, right? But like many other things, it may not seem that way at first, and many Scientologist beliefs aren't that far-fetched. The more you dig, however, the crazier it gets, until eventually it can get dangerous. If we want to understand why intelligent people join groups like Scientology, we have to look at the beliefs that might attract them to it. For this end, I've spent the last 3 weeks poring over church literature, so you don't have to. I'm basically the nostalgia critic of Scientology. And I don't know how I feel about that. The founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, was a prolific science fiction writer, currently holding the Guinness World Record for the most books published by a single author. The first big work for our studies is Dianetics, published in 1950. The book describes the techniques by which Hubbard claimed he was able to heal himself from grievous injuries he suffered during the Second World War. According to military records, however, pink eye and an ulcer were the worst he was ever treated for. In Dianetics, Hubbard taught that the mind was split into two parts. The first is the analytical mind, which is involved with thinking, observing data, and problem solving. The other is the reactive mind, which unconsciously records all painful and harmful memories one has experienced. All these negative events are recorded into engrams, which become a physical part of someone's cellular structure. These engrams become the cause of all your pains, fears, illnesses, etc. In order to remove engrams, subjects go through a process called auditing, which involves identifying these painful memories and repeatedly reliving them until they no longer have an emotional effect. In order to assist auditing, Hubbard invented the Electropsychometer, which he shortened to E-meter. Despite sounding like a rejected Batman villain, it was actually a device Hubbard claimed could detect and measure an engram's charge in the body. An E-meter is actually a third of a lie detector test, and measures what's called your galvanic skin response, which is a fancy way of saying how much your fingers sweat. The final goal of Dianetics is to erase all of a person's engrams, completely removing their reactive mind, leaving them in a state called clear. As Dianetics became more popular, an increasing number of people began reporting they could access past lives through auditing. This happened because if someone completely dealt with a memory, but the E-meter kept going, they'd have to find similar events further and further back in their life. If they ran out of events and the E-meter kept going, they'd have to find something. Hubbard was initially skeptical of these claims, but as they became more common, he integrated the phenomenon into his work. LRH, as he began to be called, wrote that there were three parts to the human: the body, the mind, and the soul, which he called a thetan. Scientology is somewhat infamous for its peculiar acronyms and lingo. Here are all the ones I ran into during just my short research. This isn't accidental. Hubbard was a fan of philosopher Alfred Korzybski, who taught that the words we use affect the ways we think and the habits we create. Believing this, Hubbard created a special vocabulary by which he could define words in the ways he wanted. Thus, the soul becomes the thetan. These thetans are cosmic beings which live many different lives in many different bodies. Over time, these once powerful spirits become weighed down by mest, or matter, energy, space, and time. The goal of Scientology was now the liberation of these thetans from mest, achieving a powerful state known as total freedom. LRH organized the steps necessary to achieve this in the Bridge to Total Freedom, which listed all the levels required to become clear and 8 OT levels after that. Well, this sounds great. How much does it cost? Well, a lot. A conservative estimate I found claims it could take $128,000 to achieve clear and $300,000 to $400,000 to get to OT8. Or you could join the Sea Org and get it all for free, but that comes with its own complications. A few levels after becoming clear, one reaches OT3, where one learns the most infamous of Scientology's secret doctrines. Most religions are generally pretty open about their creation myths. Scientology is unique because they don't tell you the full story until you've completed most of their religious program. Hubbard claimed that he suffered from powerful physical ailments while researching this information, and that if you're exposed to it without proper preparation, you could go insane. So, content warning, I guess. 75 million years ago, the Galactic Confederacy, an alliance of planets with the same culture as 1950s America, came under the control of the evil Lord Xenu. The Confederacy was suffering from an extreme overpopulation crisis, which Xenu decided needed to be solved decisively. His victims were fooled into reporting themselves to his government, often being told it was for an income tax investigation. Once there, they were captured, frozen, and flown off-world in spacecraft that looked exactly like DC-8 airplanes, but with rocket engines. These ships arrived at the planet Tegeac, what we now call Earth, and dumped these frozen people into volcanoes, and then they nuked them. The Thetans of the victims were blasted into space, where they were caught in a giant electrical belt. They were strapped into large 4D theaters and subjected to R6 implants, which became the basis for our histories, religions, and ideologies. These Thetans roamed the Earth, confused and terrified, until they found humans. Every time a new child is born, thousands of these lost souls pour into the helpless child, becoming the basis for our fear and evil. The levels OT3 to OT8 will be focused on removing the thousands of dead people which wriggle and writhe through your body as we speak. As you can imagine, people weren't too happy to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars just to hear this. So why didn't they quit? Well, if you had gotten this far into Scientology, likely its techniques had helped you out quite a bit. Maybe the story's symbolic. Maybe it would all be explained if you just went up a few more levels. Another reason might be sunk cost fallacy. You've put so much money into this religion already, you might as well keep going and see if you can get your money's worth. But what if you got them all for free by joining the Sea Org? Well, the Sea Org is Scientology's part clergy, part navy, originally founded to staff LRH's ships while he lived on the high seas, researching new techniques and avoiding the IRS. The group are the most dedicated adherents to Scientology and signed their lives away to a literal billion-year contract. The vast majority of them live and eat communally and are paid around 40 cents an hour for their labor. The Sea Org staff the land bases, which are large properties owned by the church utilized for higher level functions. They also run other locations such as the celebrity centers, the front line for recruiting celebrities into the faith. The church puts heavy emphasis on gaining and retaining celebrity adherents, such as Tom Cruise or Elizabeth Moss. The church gets a lot of hate for this, but Protestants do it all the time, so After the introduction of OT3, Hubbard's health began a slow deterioration. The effects of both events led many Sea Org members to begin questioning their faith. To address this, LRH created the Rehabilitation Project Force, or RPF, to guide straying Thetans back to the flock. According to former members, those assigned to the RPF allegedly lived in squalid conditions, ate only reheated rice and beans, and spent long hours in hard labor or in constant auditing. Someone would remain in the RPF until they realized they were an SP, a suppressive person. An SP is anyone who stands in the way of a Thetan's spiritual progress. If they can't be reformed, they cannot be a member of Scientology. This turn to internal observation and control was only the beginning of a trend, which would find its zenith under Hubbard's successor. In his book, Advanced Procedures and Axioms, LRH writes about a concept called self-determinism. This is a state of being created when a person realizes they cannot be controlled by mess unless they choose to be. It basically means that no matter what situation you find yourself in, it's your fault that you're there. To quote Hubbard, "Indeed, since he has existed prior to any existing situation, he had the free choice to do something about it. The preclear has full responsibility for anything done to him or by him. The environment starts to control an individual the moment he rationalizes away his inherent full responsibility." Full responsibility applies to everyone, including children, and is a reason many former Scientologists claim the religion had a powerful ability to make them feel extreme guilt. There are a lot of abuses which have allegedly taken place within the Church of Scientology, and they can be found through any basic Google search. Rather than talk in generalities, I'm going to discuss one particular story and relate it to the current state of the religion as a whole. The tale I'm about to tell comes from the book Going Clear, in its subsequent documentary. I would like to say that the Church of Scientology has denied pretty much all the allegations made within. While I'm spinning this yarn, I'd also like you to remember the definition of full responsibility we discussed earlier. David Miscavige joined Scientology at a young age and rose through its ranks with remarkable speed, being appointed by LRH to the position of Action Chief. From this position, he was able to orchestrate a series of high-level purges, even forcing Hubbard's wife to resign her post. Following Hubbard's death, Miscavige used his senior position to become de facto leader of Scientology, being referred to as COB, or Chairman of the Board. Ah yes, the great religious leaders of our time, the Pope, the Dalai Lama, the Chairman of the Board of the Religious Technology Center. After finally getting the church tax-exempt status, Miscavige began to get paranoid and turn on those who had helped him get power. Where have I heard this before? Miscavige fortified himself in gold base and had many of his top executives thrown into a pair of double-wide trailers, which would become known as the Hole. 40 to 50 people lived in the Hole at a time, given no furniture, fed reheated slop, and were washed by a hose. They spent most of their time drawing up extensive confessions to their crimes, failures, and sexual fantasies. If they were not particularly forthcoming, they would be harassed and occasionally beaten. One story tells of a woman forced to stand in a garbage can for 12 hours while other detainees slapped her and demand she confess to being a lesbian. Another says an executive who spoke up about his treatment was made to mop the bathroom floor with his tongue. According to Going Clear, one night David Miscavige entered the Hole with a boombox and made the group play musical chairs, threatening that those who lost would be kicked out of the Sea Org and forced to divorce their spouses. Not only were their families on the line, as far as they knew, so is their spiritual salvation. After the dust settled, Miscavige revealed that no one would be kicked out and left demanding only more confessions. Many would spend years trapped in the Hole. Heber Jensch, the president of the church, spent 7 years there. I would like to say that the church has denied allegations of abuse by Scientology or by David Miscavige personally. Miscavige's purges wrought chaos in Scientology's structure. Within 5 years, almost 500 people were moved from their posts. The church hasn't really recovered from these losses. Between bad media coverage and the purges, membership has dropped below 50,000, many of whom are second generation. This hasn't stopped the church from amassing huge amounts of wealth, holding over $3 billion in assets, much of it in real estate. Despite what Scientology has become, what bothered me most during my research is how many of their beliefs aren't that absurd. I mean, yes, the Lord Xenu stuff is pretty bonkers, but like Thetans, auditing, none of that stuff is particularly crazy. Hell, you'll read crazier stuff in the Bible than you will Dianetics. I'm not scared Scientology will make a comeback or anything. That would require massive structural and doctrinal changes I'm not sure it's capable of implementing. What scares me more is with societal instability growing and the mental health of young people being in the toilet, the time is ripe for a new self-help religion like Scientology to take root. A faith that goes down the same path of practical to crazy to potentially dangerous. I think the most important question when studying Scientology is, when will its successor appear? And what if it already has? Got a lot of bobby pins in. Hi everyone, my name is Memento Mary and I would like to thank you so much for watching. I will be doing videos on religion and cults and how they affect the world we live in. So if that sounds pretty good to you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.